All right, but that is not the only X-Men
favorite.
themed goodness for this wave. What is that? This is the sixth character in the wave. One of Dan's favorites. We have Cable here.
Who the fuck is that? He's a man out of time. Who the fuck is that? He likes to fight crime. Who the fuck is that? He ain't got the cool. Who the fuck is that? But he ain't a fool. It's fucking Cable.
Hello there, gang, and welcome to Displaying-Model-Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest video podcast. There's a brand new Cable figure about to hit store shelves soon, so I'm going to tell you why you need to care about this guy. Alright, settle down, get comfortable, here's the gist. His name's Cable. He's from the future. Okay, you probably want a bit more information than that. Don't worry, I'm going to hit you up with it right now. So Nathaniel Summers, aka Cable, was first introduced as a wee baby in Uncanny X-Men 201, written by Chris Claremont, but oh boy, does his story get a little bit crazy after that. So the person behind the creation of Cable, technically, is Mr. Sinister. Oh yeah, so Mr. Sinister was looking for a way and a means to defeat Apocalypse, and he reasoned that the most powerful potential mutant that could be created would be from a union between Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Unfortunately, Jean Grey at the time was suffering from a slight case of being dead. Don't worry, it happens to her a lot. She always gets over it. So Mr. Sinister created Madeline Pryor, who was like a genetic clone of Jean Grey, and she's got a whole big backstory thing as well, where she was a clone and then she wasn't. She was someone who looked like Jean, then she actually was Jean. It was a whole thing. But Mr. Sinister created Madeline Pryor and literally played matchmaker, set her up in a scenario where she would meet Scott Summers, and since he was still reeling from the death of Jean, he was easy prey for a good-looking redhead, and they very quickly fell in love. And this does not reflect well on Scott, because they actually raised a child together, or at least had a child. He fathered a child. A child was in the mix. Guess who that was? Nathan Summers. Okay. But then as soon as it was revealed that Jean Grey was alive, he was like, yo, peace, I gotta go, I got stuff to do. Best of luck. So Cyclops went out to reform the X-Men as X-Factor with the returned Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, Angel. You know that part of the story. And Mr. Sinister was like, okay, well, I've got the baby that I wanted now. It's time to 86 Madeline Pryor. So he sends his Marauders to go kill her. Of course, the Marauders failed to kill Madeline Pryor, but that wasn't even important because Mr. Sinister got his hands on baby Cable and immediately started poking and prodding at him to find out all about his potential power. And also, since Mr. Sinister has some freaky little psychic abilities as well, he fudged around with Scott Summers' memories to make him think that Madeline Pryor had left with Cable and that they were just off doing their own thing, so he wouldn't worry too much about them. That's kind of a get-out clause for Scott. Luckily for Madeline Pryor, after escaping from the Marauders, even though she had lost Nathaniel Summers, she ran into the X-Men and they kind of took her in and took good care of her, which is lucky. Meanwhile, the precognitive mutant Destiny tells Cyclops that, hey, guess what? Your child is alive and well and in an orphanage in Alaska, so you better go pick him up. Unfortunately, while they're busy doing this, Mr. Sinister is able to retrieve Madeline Pryor from the X-Men, and he tells her everything about her origins and where she came from, and she does not take it well. In fact, it pretty much pushes her over the deep end into Kaka for Cuckoo Puffs land. She does not handle it well. At all. So Madeline Pryor does what anyone would do when they find out they're a clone. She becomes the Goblin Queen. She finds out that she has these latent psychic and telekinetic abilities, being a clone of Jean Grey, and she forms a union with the creatures of Limbo. And she figures to herself, okay, you know what? With my super powerful baby, which to be fair, she has the most right to out of all the people in this story, she thinks that she can use him to maintain a portal between Earth and Limbo. I told you this is a crazy story. Luckily for young Cable, he doesn't have to grow up in Limbo because he's rescued by the X-Men, but it's not a happy ending because while Jean and Scott are hoping to raise him as their own, Apocalypse swoops in and he's like, yo, okay, hey guys, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. Here's a little something for the baby shower. Oh, what's this? It's a techno-organic virus. Boom! And you were expecting a onesie. Because Apocalypse ain't no fool, and he knows exactly how powerful this baby's going to become. So he essentially nerfs him by infecting him with this virus. And what this techno-organic virus does is it slowly creeps through the entire body, eventually turning the victim into just a puddle of liquid metal, essentially. Luckily for Cable, a member of the Axani tribe. I'm dyslexic and I never actually broke down that word properly, but a member of this tribe from 2,000 years in the future appears in the present and says, don't worry, we got a plan for you. I told you, it gets weird. So this person says that in the future, not only do they have a cure for the virus, but Cable, Nathaniel Summers, is going to go on to be their savior, overthrowing Apocalypse, who 2,000 years in the future is just dominating and destroying the whole landscape, as Apocalypse was always reasoned to do. So in the future, Mother Ascani, who is a clone of Cable's sister Rachel Summers, she puts baby Cable, in suspended animation and also makes a clone of him because she's worried that even though they've made these bold claims, she's actually thinking, you know what, I'm not sure if we can cure him of the virus. So she makes a clone and puts him in suspended animation to try and fix it. Boy, this is getting convoluted. Do you think this clone's going to be forgotten about? Oh, no. This is going to be coming back as well. It's a lot. So fortunately, both Nathaniel Summers and the clone do survive, but the clone surviving, not always the best thing, because Apocalypse captures the clone and raises it as his own, essentially. So now you have the heir of Apocalypse, who's a clone of Cable that goes on to become Strife. And don't worry, this isn't a philanthropic, fatherly, nurturing thing from Apocalypse. He sees how strong and powerful this clone body could be, and he's like, yo, if things ever crap out on this body of mine, I'm jumping straight into that one. Barely used, good as new. So that's Cable's initial origin out of the way, and right now with the timeline, we're 2,000 years in the future. But guess what? Chronologically, gotta go back in time. We're gonna go back to the modern day of the 616, the modern day of the late 80s, New Mutants 87. All right, let's narrow it down to that. New Mutants 87, where we get the first modern day appearance of fully grown adult from the future, Cable. So Cable first appears taking on the Mutant Liberation Front, who are kind of like the Brotherhood of Mutants. They're out to improve mutant kind by any means necessary. So there's a whole fracas with Cable and these ne'er-do-well mutant liberation people, and it's kind of a big bombastic introduction to this militaristic, badass Terminator Commando-style mutant, but no one knows who he really is. So Cable's having a whole to-do with the Mutant Liberation Front, and guess who the shadowy mastermind behind that organization is? Yeah, it's Cable. Kind of. Remember the clone from the future? Strife? Yeah, he's gone back in time as well. It turns out, 2,000 years in the future, it's not the hit place to be that we might have thought it was. So Strife has gone back in time, and now he's putting all the little Machiavellian pieces in place for his own brand of global domination. So now things get a little bit complicated. I know, yeah. Now they get complicated. So Mother Ascani is injured, and so she brings Jean Grey and Scott Summers into the future to help her protect Cable. Technically, it's not physically the Jean and Scott that we know. Their bodies wouldn't be able to survive the time travel, so their minds inhabit the bodies of their future ancestors. Just to make things more weird. Why not? At this point in the regular 616, Jean and Scott had met the adult Cable who had traveled back in time, and they were starting to already mend their relationship or even build a relationship with him as he's now an adult, because he goes back in time after this. Oh, I'm going cross-eyed here. So Jean and Scott in the future take on the names Red and Slim Dayspring, and they raise Cable. I keep calling him Cable. I mean, he's not called Cable until later, but Nathaniel, Cable, you know who I'm talking about. And they live this kind of nomadic lifestyle where they go from place to place and they're raising Nathaniel. I can't even stick with one name for him. And they're teaching him how to use his powers and ultimately getting to raise their son, which is kind of nice. Eventually, at the age of 8, Nathaniel meets his clone, Strife, and they're both like, okay, this is weird. And also at the same time, the techno-organic virus begins to just take over and overwhelm him. After it had been dormant for a long time, it just kind of kicks into high gear and just really does a number on his body. So while Nathaniel is in a coma trying to battle the techno-organic virus, Mother Askany appears to him and she explains how if he uses a large percentage of his telepathic ability every day, he can keep the virus at bay, which is kind of exactly what Apocalypse's intentions were. It completely nerfs his ability to be at full power because he's constantly battling this virus. But you know what? It saves his life and he's able to come out of the coma and maintain a basic human physical form without the virus going crazy. And it's around about this time that Apocalypse decides that, hey, Strife, that's a nice body you got there. Time for me to move in. Yeah, there's going to be new ownership taking over this thing. Lucky for him though, Cyclops and Phoenix are going to be on hand to put a stop to it. So Apocalypse is able to see through the physical forms of Cyclops and Jean. He knows that they are Scott Summers and Jean Grey from the past, as well as Nathaniel being Cable. And he's like, okay, don't worry, I've been ready for this for a long time. Luckily, the X-Men are able to break the psychic link between Apocalypse and Strife, which effectively sort of kills Apocalypse. I say sort of because, I mean, do you ever really kill Apocalypse? The answer is no. But there's no time to celebrate because Mother Askany is dying, and it turns out that it was her life and energy that was keeping Jean and Scott in the future. And as soon as she starts to slip away, boom, Jean Grey effectively disappears from that part of the time stream, and Scott Summers is not far behind. But he has a few words that he wants to say to Cable before they effectively leave him on his own, alone in the future. And in his final breaths, as Scott Summers begins to disappear from the time stream, he tells Nathaniel, his son, that he'll never be alone. Oof, that's kind of beautiful. And the rest is history. Or future prehistory. But that is the origin of Cable right there. And oh my goodness, we got some beautiful action figures to celebrate this crazy mutant. So we had an original Marvel Legend. Well, I say that. We have all kinds of different Marvel Legends, but the one that captures his 1991 Rob Liefeld pockets and pouches badassery, oof, that came out in the Juggernaut wave, I think, and it's still the absolute chef's kiss of Cable action figures. So gorgeous. But the new one that's coming out very soon is based much more on his mid-90s design, where he's kind of become like a fully fledged accepted member of the X-Men or the extended X-Men family. Because at first, kind of like he's portrayed in the cartoon, he's very gruff and dismissive of just about everyone. All you could ever get out of him was just, the name's Cable. I'm from the future. It's like, okay, yeah, but do you want to like hang out and help each other? Eventually, everybody gets along and he's wearing the blue and yellow, and this is the costume we're going for, which is also widely known as the Capcom costume. This didn't debut in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, but this is where a lot of people know it from. But if you want a super zhuzhed up version of this costume, you could get one of my favorite action figures of all time, the Revoltech Cable. Oh my goodness, this thing literally has everything that you want in a Cable action figure. It's got the classic mid-90s blue and yellow, but with so much more detail, with the pockets and pouches, with the texture on the suit that feels like real clothing. So much detail going on there, the beautiful psychic glow from his eye, the metallic arm, and just the gigantic 90s guns. That's my absolute favorite Cable of all time there. But the fact that we're getting this version in Marvel Legends form, it's always lovely to see because it's just more great additions to the X-Men roster. And folks, that does it for my super condensed deep dive on Cable. The story is always unfolding. It has twists and turns. It goes back and forward in time. This dude, it's a Swiss cheese roll of spaghetti trying to untangle what this guy gets up to throughout his many different lifetimes. But he's one of my favorite characters to follow, so I was very excited to see this Marvel Legends reveal. And also, I want to give a big thanks to Sword in the Storm, channel member and Patreon supporter, who kind of technically suggested this video. He asked me to do a video about New Mutants, Cable, X-Force a long time ago, and I've been procrastinating on that, but that's what you get when I finally make good on my promises to Patreon and channel members. I gave you the video, all right? So you can stop asking for it now. But gang, thank you so much. What do you think about cable? Comment below. Let me know. And if you like what you see and you want to see more, then you know what you gotta do. You gotta join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And if you want to go one step beyond in supporting the channel, then you can do by getting a YouTube channel membership. That's effectively the equivalent of buying me a pint. And it means that when I'm doing live streams, you can comment in the chat and you can see all the archives with exclusive videos. It's a good time. I mean, hey, look, if you're going to spend a couple of bucks, why not spend it on model behavior? Well, I'll tell you why not. Because you could also spend it on the channel sponsor, which is Into the AM, who have provided me with some beautiful graphic t-shirts. You can click the link in the description below and get 10% off your order. So gang, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
Coffee, 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 big time.